What is that is a loud yelling intro, isn't it? Isn't that a loud yelly intro? My goodness, people. What is shaking? It is Golden Mike at 210. Do you know why we have before I even ask that, I want to ask everybody who's watching right now, what does it really mean to heal? To heal and to step into living your best life, to live a life for yourself. What does that mean to you? And really have that sink in. We've had 210 episodes, and I've been super excited for this one coming up. We have author, intuitive healer, speaker, Stephanie McAuliffe with us today. And Steph, do you know why I've had 210 episodes?
Because no one can cancel you.
What the heck, dude? Dude! I got, oh my God! Someone who actually watches the show, she got me. Welcome to the Golden Mike. We're talking about healing. We're talking about all good things today. For those of you who have not met me, Steph's met me and knows my catchphrases. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Mark Cordone, founder of the Joy Revolution. This month, the Joy Revolution is giving a completely full-on, free fundamentals of positive psychology and thriving. Yeah, George from New York just said it. I just got owned. I got owned by Steph. We're giving away a free positive psychology course. This is a course that you would take on a college, a master's, or a PhD level, and we're giving you access for free. We want some of these ideas to get out there, to circulate, and for you to use them in your own joy revolutions. More importantly than that course, on a regular basis, I get to ask questions to folks like Steph. Two super simple questions. Question number one is, how happy are you today? And question number two is, how much are you living in your full purpose? So, Steph, what's going on with you?
So I am fucking ecstatic. And dropping the F-bomb in the first minute. And owning it.
She knows the catchphrases. She's dropping the F-bombs. I'm turning on the recorder here because this could turn into a podcast at any moment. So, yeah.
It could. And, yes, I am finally living in my new full purpose.
Why do you say finally?
Well, because, when I think of this energy work, so we'll go back a little bit. I spent 27 years on Wall Street.
Yeah.
I started out as a COBOL programmer, and I loved the analytical work that I did. And that was my purpose for that period of time. But when I think back to some of the things that really excited me when I was young, that's what I'm stepping back into now.
So it's kind of a full circle return when it comes to purpose.
But isn't life that way anyway?
You're going to have to come to my speakers who dare talk before I answer that question, baby. But yes, I would say yes.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And this is part of the journey of we get conditioned even as early as school.
Yeah.
And our parents who have ideals of how they would like us to see us live our life. And so sometimes we step into things that we may have been guided towards that could fit us for a while, yet really isn't what sings in our heart.
Okay, I'm going off character again. Damn it! You already
Good.
got me wanting to ask more questions than are on in the catchphrases. She knows the catchphrases. Wow faces, give them to us, everybody. Likes, hearts, everybody hit those likes and hearts. What I want to ask you then is, you're a healer.
I
You
am.
do intuitive healing. You do things, that are a return to almost childlike curiosity, a return to passion that has always been there. And you're talking about being conditioned when we are younger. Is that conditioning a form of wounding? Is it a form of damage that's being done?
It could be if we don't step into what it is that we really want to do. I mean, how many people do you hear of that want to be musicians or artists, and you're told, well, you can never make any money doing that? The one great thing is my dad took me to a management consultant when I was in high school, and it took a battery of tests, and it came up as art and computers. And I said, well, exactly. And I said, you know what? I love art. And I was very involved in art, in creating,
Okay.
in many different forms. But I didn't want to be a starving artist. And so I stepped into computers, which, like I said, for 30 years, it served me very, very well.
Right. Now,
Now it has come back. So I wasn't coerced, but there are many people who are, you need to be a doctor to follow the family tradition.
Oh, absolutely, and there's a
Right.
disruption of that. I feel like you're staring into my soul right now, Megala,
Well.
with that family doctor piece. But also at the same time, I in looking at this, and I do have a question. I'm so fascinated with what we're talking about today. I do have questions prepared, which usually doesn't happen, and people usually don't get my catchphrases. This idea of kind of reclaiming yourself, this idea of healing, it's got to be something that's really pervasive, that folks are walking around wounded and not even know it.
Absolutely. And we know that up until age 7 or 8, we as children don't know discernment. And so we don't know to not take things on that aren't ours. And there are comments that can be made. There are things that are done through no fault of the people that are teaching us or raising us. But we do, and we take on the energy of that and we internalize it.
Yeah. I hope my son is not getting wounded from this, but sometimes when I'm working and he wants to FaceTime with me, he takes it personally that I'm not there to pick up the phone for him. Do you consider that a form of discernment when they're, with him being at 7 years old and being like, oh, Daddy, you didn't pick up the phone, and being hurt by that?
Well, but this is where you can have a conversation with him.
Right.
To, assuage some of the fears of Daddy's not there for me. And there are things that you can say and do with him so that he doesn't take these things on of Daddy's not available, Daddy doesn't want to talk to me. I saw, before I moved, I used to walk a lot. And
no, you're in Utah now, right?
I am in Utah, but this was in New Jersey.
Okay.
And I was walking in front of a school, and a mother was chasing after her toddler son, and the daughter was behind her. And she yelled at the daughter to hurry up because we need to keep up with your brother. And the look of total dejection on that little girl, she stopped in her tracks, her shoulders, her body movements, and the mother didn't even see it. And so this is why I say we can say and do things that we don't even realize the impact. And that little girl, who was probably 4, all she heard from her mother was, "Your brother is more important. We need to make sure that we're keeping up with him."
And that was just a straight up observation. You didn't need to be intuitive. You could just read through body
Absolutely.
language. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And,
And so these are the things that we take on, and we internalize that energy of, "I'm not worthy, Mom doesn't care." We create all these things in our mind,
yeah.
and it gets stored in the subconscious, wherever that is in our body or out in the universe. And we internalize that energy. And over time, we create a lot of blocks around our heart as well. Because really, our heart is where our brain is.
Talk more about that.
And when we're not connected with our heart, because there are the Heart Math Institute, Dr. Joe Dispenza, there are many organizations out there that are measuring the energy that comes from our heart.
Yeah.
And when we have that true mind-heart connection, it's like things open up for us.
Absolutely. And then you
But
look at the work of Ken Wilber and some neuroscientists who have found that neurons will go as far as your stomach and your heart, and so it's really funny when folks are like, "Oh, I feel something here right now." That could be a neuron firing as well that's going down.
Absolutely. What happens, though, is that a lot of our pain and a lot of the trauma and hurt that we experience through life gets trapped in our lower 3 energy centers. So our chakras, so our root, our sacral, and our solar plexus. And when a lot of the energy is blocked down there, it doesn't flow up to our heart.
Okay.
So one of the things that I do with my clients is we release those energetic blocks within the body that you can't see that are there, but you know that something is in the way, and you can't figure it out. And you can't figure it out because there's no logic behind it.
Okay. And there isn't supposed to be logic behind it.
Right. It's like we've internalized these things.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is a little bit of logic because it does go back to these things that we've experienced through life that we've internalized because we either haven't had the ability to express them or we haven't been taught. And many of us have not been taught.
Okay, so if we haven't been taught, who are the original teachers then? Because there are folks like you right now who are working with it. It says intuitive, right? Which would mean that it comes from I wouldn't say an internal place, but it comes from a place of knowing, right?
Yes.
So who are the original teachers then? If we haven't been taught, and I'm just talking about we as society haven't been taught, who are the teachers then?
There are healers who have been around for thousands and thousands of years. When you look at Native Americans, shamans, indigenous healers, healing really became much more logical with the advent of modern medicine. So when you look at the late 1800s, there was a very big, there were a lot of healers. There was, I can't think of the word off the top of my head right now. But modern medicine came along and kind of pushed that away. And then a lot of people have thought of what I do and what many healers do as woo-woo.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming full circle now because we're seeing that modern medicine can only take us so far.
Right.
So we can go to a doctor and fix a broken bone, and we could have surgery on our broken parts. We can go to therapy or a coach, which helps us with the mind. Spirit is our heart, and it's the energy that we've internalized, and it is our connection with something greater than ourselves. So I talk about healing body, mind, and spirit. Now, when I work with clients, it's also tapping back into the source of where that energy comes from because once someone has awareness, we can then use the energy work to transcend it. We don't have to beat it up.
Mm. Okay.
We don't have to walk through it like a lot of traditional therapy does,
Right.
which is good. I mean, I went to therapists off and on to deal with things for years, but I found that I was still stuck in my story. And it
Gotcha.
was when I really started stepping into energy healing and working with healers as well that I was able to transcend. And that has made all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. We have David here, David in Costa Rica, talking about some of the teachers, the ancient teachings and teachers
Yes.
brought forward folks like Buddha, Jesus, Gandhi, MLK, Mother Teresa. It's fun
Yes.
playing devil's advocate with that. And I want to go into this idea, like you were talking about change now. With some of the folks, like you've done traditional therapy. I wouldn't call this untraditional therapy. I would call this healing, right?
It is.
What
It's
is
another aspect of.
okay? Another aspect
all-
of healing.
Right. It's because it's all healing, and there's there's thousands of modalities out there.
Okay.
It's finding what works for you.
Okay, and I want to through the healing that you do. I know that you use the term that nothing will change until you change something about what you want to change. Talk about what you mean by that.
We can think about things ad nauseum forever until you take a step. Nothing's going to change. So whether it's writing a letter, because one of the processes I do with clients is writing the letter that will never be sent. Because many times there are things that we've wanted to say to someone, we haven't been able to have the conversation either because they may not be emotionally available, they may be dead, they may have moved away for whatever reason. And so by writing that letter, we can move some of that energy out of ourselves. It may be having a conversation with someone to clear the air. It may
And so
be.
that's where clear the air comes from. There's so many.
Okay.
That's what I'm guessing is because there's so many things around energy and healing that we use on a regular basis. Like
True.
clear the air might be one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the origin of that, but it is. It's and that's what Ho'oponopono does. It clears the energy between yourself and another person. And it may be if there's something that you really want in your life, or you want to move past something, you need to do something about it rather than just think about it.
So,
Because all thinking about it does is just continue to swirl that energy around in the mind and the body. And
absolutely, you are talking to
Right.
the king of things swirling through the mind.
it's
Also,
the monkey mind. Yeah.
absolutely, and
Right.
and also at the same time, is there illusionary change where it's like I am doing things about it. Look, I am changing things, but really, what you're doing is just doing something. Different, a different person, but same energy, right? Like it's like a repeat of the same things. But a
Yes.
person is like, no, I'm changing. Do you see that? Is that an illusionary form of change, or do you count that as change?
I'm so glad you asked this question. When you think of affirmations and mantras, I could repeat an affirmation or a mantra every single day for the rest of my life. If I don't believe it, all I'll say is nothing's happening. And I'll blame it on the person who gave me the mantra or the affirmation, or I'll blame it on something outside of me rather than do I really believe this?
Yeah. Now,
If I don't believe it, that's that disconnect between the mind and heart again.
and so that kind of brought up the next question that I had for you is sort of how do you move towards believing? Is it a subconscious thing? Because I'm going to go into the positive psychology realm for a second. Like with affirmations, they don't work in positive psychology either. Because there's 99% of the time we are driven by the unconscious, or things that, things that we're not in the prefrontal cortex. That, and we can say it as much as we want, those affirmations, but if the other 99% doesn't buy it, it's just like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, keep saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing to tap into is write down the affirmation on a piece of paper, and then write down all the ways that you don't believe it. And those are the things to clear. Those are the things to clear.
That is really interesting. Yeah.
And that's a way to clear our energy. Because I can say, I don't know, I'm worthy of earning, $1 million a year. If I don't believe, why don't I believe that? And then write down all those reasons, and those could be my money blocks, those could be my worthiness blocks, those could be old stories of, money doesn't grow on trees. It's because sometimes this isn't just our energy.
Yeah.
It's energy that has come from our family.
Absolutely.
And this is where we get into epigenetics, which could be a whole separate conversation.
It will be on the podcast.
Awesome.
You got David.
It's really...
You have David all lit up, so I have to go here before he just types himself off of the page, and then all of Costa Rica shuts down. I don't know if you've heard of integrated energy work, but he's bringing that up. Fully integrated approaches create fully integrated solutions.
Yep.
Help me out here with a sentence, David. So, like, if you have a question or anything, very similar to what you were talking about, Steph. Mind, body, soul. He's talking about completing the past. I want to stop there for a second because I'm getting a hit. What's the deal with completing the past? And he's got a like this winky smile face going on. What does it mean to heal and complete the past?
Completing the past is coming to a place where you are no longer triggered by a situation.
Gotcha.
You are completely, you can be the observer of it. You no longer, there is no wrong or right. There is no good or bad. Things that happen are just things. Now, we don't come from these great hurts to being completely neutral overnight. It takes work because there are things that we need to come to the place of the awareness and then work on healing that energy within us. When you can talk about something and you are no longer triggered by it, you have healed the past.
Now, when you're talking about, kind of healing the past and also things with energy work and your lower third, right? Is it all coming together now? Like in healing the past, is part of it opening up the energy flow? Like if the lower third is blocked?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and sometimes there are other blocks as well. So I do distance healing, and I worked with a client yesterday dealing with some old family trauma, and I can feel where the energy is being unwound from a person. And it felt like she had bungee cords around her arms. Okay. She had blocks in her throat because she had never really been able to speak her piece. And it also felt like her thighs were like wrapped together. So we cleared those energies.
Okay.
Which opens her up. And now it's up to her to, this is a cooperative relationship. When you go to a healer, it's not just heal me.
Okay. So there's choice involved.
There's absolutely choice. But in releasing and removing the energies that have held someone back, they're then able to step into by free will, because we all have free will and choice,
Absolutely.
of saying what it is that they need to say without feeling responsibility for the other person's response.
Okay.
Is one example.
Okay, so I'm just going back to David right now. David, I'm giving you some attention, bud, because he's just like, come on, listen to me. You two are almost in harmony right now. He's talking about it being
That's awesome.
a practice we commit to or not.
Yes.
We choose suffering
Right.
or greatness, but we choose. And then when it comes to things like negativity, he was talking about it being a low energy versus creativity, and finding a way to feed your commitment is more of a high energy path. He loves the
Yes.
conversation. Then hit a heart. Let us know that you love the conversation, Dave. We missed you.
And that's very true, because part of it is I see people, and I dealt a lot in Al-Anon and 12-step for
Yeah.
many, many years, because I'm married to alcoholics. That was part of my journey to heal. But I see so many who are in those rooms who are stuck in their story and they don't know how to move past it. And so then they just kind of say, fuck it, because they don't know how. And
Is
so
it because it's so close? Like it's almost subjective, and it's hard to make it objective. Like when you work on something so long, like it almost becomes a part of you, and you're like, I can't see the invisible tapestry around me because it's part of me. Is it like that, or is it just like you talked about at the beginning, like they just don't have the tools or the teacher?
I think it's both.
Okay.
Many people become attached to their story. I was attached to my story for years. And a lot of people think of life as black and white. I either am or I'm not. But there's something magical about saying, you know what? Who would I be if I let go of this old story? Who would I be when I step into living in this question and step back into some of that childlike wonder?
So I do want to hear a little bit of I want you to go a little bit more specific with that piece. Like, it's not a reliving of the story that you let go of, but what did that story look like, and how was it that you were attached to it? And then I want to go into you letting it go, and so to be able to give it a contrast of this is what it looks like, an example.
Okay. So the example I'll use, and I share a lot of this in my book, is I
Which
grew
you'll
up
get for
around. Yes, write me a note, and I will happily send you a free copy. Yes, is I grew up with the legacy of alcoholism in my family. I'm at least the fourth generation of women in my family to grow up around alcoholics.
Okay.
I lost my voice when I was very young. I didn't feel that it was safe to speak up for myself. And I perpetuated that by marrying two alcoholics. And then I went to Al-Anon, and I was stuck in that story of, this is my legacy, I'm married to, and what's coming to me is just blah, blah, blah. I mean, we can continue to be identified by that, or it's, what would life look like if I no longer wanted to carry that and step into something different? And it was when I let go of that story and stepped into the question. And that was part of my 9 months of traveling last year.
So in many ways, it was letting go of the legacy. This is what I am.
Yes.
This is my destiny to fulfill. Like this is what it's been the 3 generations prior, and this is what it's gonna look like after.
Right.
Now, in terms of letting it go, how easy or hard was it to let go of? I mean, you went on a pilgrimage, a 9-month
I did.
piece. Is that where you were able to let it go?
That was a lot of it. So the prior summer, a memory had come back to me that was pretty devastating. And I'm not going to go into the specifics, it doesn't matter. It was something I told myself to protect myself until I was ready to really deal with the memory.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will sometimes tell ourselves stories to protect ourselves, and that's fine. That's how our subconscious keeping us safe. That's that back of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
But when I had this memory come back and I started to deal with it, I looked at my life and I just looked around and said, I'm not happy with the way I'm building my business. I don't want to be here in New Jersey anymore. There were just a lot of changes. And it's fascinating because I had gone on a pilgrimage with Lobsterbird to Bali that December. And I got the download of Sedona because my house was on the market. I was closing in January. Where am I going to move? And I went to Sedona and I left empty-handed. And I actually wrote a blog piece on Facebook and entitled, I think it's What is Home? And I realized that I was meant to travel. I wasn't meant to be in any one place. And it was through that, locking my front door for the last time and going on this 9-month road trip, that I stepped more deeply into trusting of myself. That the 3 components that I talk about of trust, forgiveness, and grace, I did that for myself and also just explored. I went on a hot spring tour as part of my travels and visited over 24 hot springs. I met amazing people. The mountains were calling me. I visited the mountains. I was in the desert, pretty much mostly on the West Coast. I did a little U around the United States and put over 15,000 miles on my car. And then I got to the point of, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
It's just, you're
But
just
it
like,
was,
I'm done today. It's just,
well, and then I went on a retreat in the Adirondacks. And when I was there, I got the download of Provo, which is how I ended up here. And so sometimes it is of just, we don't even understand how much we hold on to, including sometimes how tightly we hold in our stomachs. And there's energy associated with that. If we think that we are defined by these possessions that are around us, we're looking for things outside of us rather than internally. And I still find things to let go of. I get to the point of, all right, what more is there? And I ask for guidance, and it comes, and it's all perfect. If the universe brought us everything we wanted all at once, I think our heads would explode.
well, I
So
wanted to
there's,
throw this out there for you. I mean,
yeah,
you're fucking ecstatic right now. You're living in full purpose, or you're living in a purpose that's come full circle. And
yes, continues to evolve.
when you ask now, what more is there? What downloads do you get? Like what more is there?
It's a knowing. It's
Okay.
a thought that comes to me, and this is what happens when we really open up our heart and trust. Because we're barraged all day long with external messages of how we're not supposed to be trusting ourselves or liking ourselves. I mean, just look at the beauty and fashion industry and pharmaceutical as well. You take all of those away, and what we have left is ourselves, and to be comfortable with ourselves and to not be looking for things outside of ourselves or a magic pill to fix us.
Wow. It sounds like it's, well, I kind of wanted to throw this out as well. It feels like it's there's a certain turning coming forward. Like there's a certain awakening that's happening, and it's not just an awakening of one or just we're gonna have 8 Buddhas, 1 Jesus, and 3 Gandhis on Earth, but it feels as if there's gonna be a lot of people opening up to this in the next 10 years or so. Is that something that you feel as well through your travels, through the people that you're meeting? because you said there is, and like so for me, I'm like, what? Why is it that we're saying this? Because it feels like there's a collective body of people saying we all feel something turning, but or is it's 2020 and that feels very symbolic, right? you know?
No, it absolutely is happening. And
Okay.
I see it more and more. I actually see it more being out west or in the or in the Rockies than I did out east. It's amazing how I live in this town of Provo, which is, Mormon Latter-day Saints on one side, who are incredibly open to energy work. And there are more energy healers here.
Right.
It's incredible. We've also moved from the age of Pisces into Aquarius, and so it is an opening. It is, I think Aquarius is an air sign, and so it is our opening up to the thoughts and the energy that's coming into us. And so there is a big shift. There are those that are resisting it greatly, and I think that's a lot of the divide that we're seeing in this country. There are a lot of old gray-haired people and not so old gray-haired people who are holding on to the old paradigm for dear life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there are those who are starting to waken up, and then there are those of us, and I'm still waking up. I think we continue until our soul passes on to its next iteration.
Sure.
But there are those who have deeply stepped into this healing work to be a guide for others. So one of the things, I call myself an illuminator. I'm shining a light and shining a path for others to be able to step in and sharing tools and not just telling people what to do, but sharing with them how as well.
Amazing.
It's like, don't just say the mantra or the affirmation. Here's what you can do to work through the energy behind it. So that you can fully step into it.
I fucking love it. It's almost like what Harry Houdini would do. He would show you the magic trick, then he'd show you the technology to be like, okay, so now you can go and do this, and also don't let people pick your pocket using this.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
David. I mean, I hope you aren't paying by the hour or paying by the letter here, because you are writing quite the book here. He's saying that it's the collective consciousness awakening.
It is.
Awakening.
It is. Absolutely.
I know some people call it moving from a third to a fourth and higher.
Fifth.
A dimension.
Yes.
Some people call it the field. Going
all
back,
of the above.
Yeah, all of the above.
All of the above.
Going back to something I studied in neuroscience, that whether you're woo or not, there's something that was really interesting when people studied monkeys on an archipelago, and what they found were that these group of monkeys would eat coconuts, and then when one group found out how to open a coconut even better, that would be fine. Then like two would open it, and then all the groups learned at once. And so you don't see this learning happen like gradually. You see it happen exponentially. And I feel like that's what's happening with the collective unconscious. Enough people have reached that tipping point that when people are choosing to come into this world, they're coming in a very high, vibration or whatever. They're coming in very attuned to the world, and yes, it does feel as if there will be some collapses of things, even down to the way economies work. In the next 10 years, and people are going to hold on to it. It's a very fun time to be here, and I think that it was a nice all points bulletin to call on All Souls at one point to bring us to a 5D level. I want to go back to healing again for one more moment.
Can I add one thing to that
absolutely.
Really quickly?
Yeah.
So this is where we as adults know discernment. And so there are a lot of people out there that are now offering programs, both in large companies and smaller. And the one thing to really trust is yourself. So my advice before anybody buys a program, starts to work with somebody, really use discernment there. Because I'm seeing that, and we'll probably get into this in the podcast, there's a lot of spiritual bypassing.
So what I was about to ask you, we don't have time.
And so this is where it's really, does it feel right, or does it feel like I'm grabbing on to something? And if it feels like I'm grabbing for something, that's something to really watch for. Because there should be an energetic alignment with anybody that you're working with. And I went through this for a couple of years, and that was part of what I tore apart last year. Were some of those old programs and people that I was working with that I wasn't aligned with anymore. And not to say the path wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
Because it was. But that's part of making that cut.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting with that discernment piece is because it's masked in the it's masked in the facade of enlightenment or spiritual growing, but then the outcomes are like what you talked about, like with possessions. The outcomes are about like acquisitions of more possessions, and it's like wait,
Right.
this is a very interesting thing. David, we'll get to you. We'll get to all your questions and answers. All right. I knew we'd go into flow, Mama. I knew we'd go into flow.
Always.
And I know we're gonna be in the same city at some point really soon. And that's when I want to have you on that podcast.
We're going so deep, dude.
I mean, look at you. In 30 seconds, you totally destroyed my structure of the show. And I was just like, let's go there. Let's go there. I want to throw out this for anyone who wants the book. Not Reclaiming Yourself. That's what you founded.
No.
The message in the bottle: finding hope and peace amidst the chaos of living with an alcoholic. Just email Stephanie. Her email is in the show notes right now. Email her. Let her know that you want that book, and she'll send you a copy of that book. Also, at the same time, if you look in there is a group for February, a healing group for February, for you to be a part of, an invitation for that group. Yes, when you look at that group, the price point, that's a real price point. It's not a 300 or 3,000, 100, it's a very simple investment. The price of a meal in some places,
or less, yes.
Or less, to get some good healing for an entire month. I can't wait in the podcast to talk about how I got sick with my root opening up recently, and the nightmares that I've been having through doing some healing work. Yes, we'll do it. We'll talk about it on the podcast, or we'll talk about it afterwards. But I think you've done this before with me. You've done a visualization exercise, and this is why is called the Golden Mic. Number one, thank you for coming on, David. Thank you for lighting up the board today, George as well, and whoever is watching the replay. Steph, I want you to imagine a golden mic over there in Utah coming down from your ceiling. Now, this golden mic has the potential to reach every sentient being in this multiverse, to translate into every single language. And for some people, they're not going to pick up what you're throwing down. For others, they've been searching and seeking their entire lives for this message right now. So, with that said, Stephanie, your golden mic is live now.
Take a moment and close your eyes and tap into the energy of your heart. And if you want, you can put your left hand over it. So your left hand is typically your receiving hand. What message does it have for you? and take a moment to listen. And whatever awareness comes is perfect. And this is where you can also remember that you are always safe. You are always safe within your heart. And it will speak to you when you ask for guidance. And you may now open your eyes. Mark didn't want to leave the energy.
No, I didn't.
I threw some healing Reiki and healing energy in there while I was doing that as well. So
I appreciate that. Received as well as I could. I did get a message.
Awesome.
And it said, "You cannot cancel me. You cannot cancel." I've got to do the catchphrase. Steph, will have you back soon. More importantly, don't forget about emailing her for the book. This month's group, the February group, is in full swing. And
yeah, Saturday night, distance healing.
There you go. Saturday night distance healing. We got the fundamentals in positive psychology going full swing. It's a free course. A lot of good things are out there if you just receive and say yes to it. Here you go. On behalf of Steph and I have one final question for you, and it's this: if you're feeling good and you're functioning in your full purpose, what is your responsibility to change history for the better? Mark and Steph, episode 210, signing off. We will see you soon. Take care. Bye.
My honor.
Unbelievable.
It went so. I mean, I didn't know where it was going. No expectations. It was awesome.
That's what happens when you throw the show off in the first. You throw a